Now let's begin with updates on Osun local government election, where the People's Democratic Party has won all the chairmanship and councillorship seats in all the 30 local government areas in Osun State. The chairman of the Osun State Independent Electoral Commission, Hashim Abioye, announced this at a press conference on Saturday. Now, the commission defied warnings by the police and the Attorney General of the Federation, Lateef Fagbemi, to hold the poll. The state governor, Ademola Adeleke, who cast his vote in the Ede North local government area, described the exercise as peaceful. Earlier, the State Electoral Commission boss accused the police of sealing the commission's headquarters in Osogbo, the state capital, and arresting some personnel. Abioye, however, said the commission moved to an undisclosed location to carry out its constitutional duty.
From the available results, as obtained from the field, the candidates of the People's Democratic Party in the 332 wards emerged as winners. Their names are as listed in the schedule to this text, and I, as the Chief Returning Officer of the Commission, hereby return each and every one of them as duly elected councillors of their respective wards. The results are available anytime for anyone who may be interested in certified true copies. For the 30 local government areas of Osun State, the candidate of the People's Democratic Party cleared all the seats. To this effect, by the power conferred on me as the Chief Returning Officer of Osun State Independent Electoral Commission, I hereby declare the following persons as duly elected chairmen of their respective local government areas.
To further discuss this, we're joined by political affairs commentator Jide Johnson. Thank you so much for joining us, Jide, on the news.
It's a pleasure to be with you, and good day to our viewers all over the world. Thank you for having me.
Now, let's begin with this. Do you think that incumbency of the state governor influenced the PDP's success in this local government election?
Now, what happened in Osun State is not different from what has happened in the other 35 states of the Federation where local government elections have been conducted, whereby the party of the governor, or the party in which, with the exception of Rivers State, whereby the governor had sympathy for another political party apart from the party that brought him to power, won all of the local government elections. And we have said it, the last time we have any semblance of credibility concerning local government election was in 1998, December 1998, when the local government election was held throughout the 774 local government in Nigeria by the Independent National Electoral Commission to kickstart the Fourth Republic. After that, what we have seen at the local government level is a charade in the sense that no respect for democratic principles, and there have been attempts by different forces to control the affairs of the local government, either through an executive overreach from the federal or at the state level. You recall that when the present president had a running battle with, when he was the governor of Lagos State, when he created 37 LCDs and which local government elections were conducted, and the then president Olusegun Obasanjo said those LCDs were not part and parcel of the fifth schedule of the Constitution, and they seized the money until the Supreme Court ruled that the federal government does not have the power or the capacity to seize the money that belongs to local government. So it's nothing new to our polity, and then it calls for concern for us to really look at how we need to reform this particular level of governance, because this is the level of governance that is closest to the people, because that's grassroots governance.
All right, now let's quickly look at the boycott by other political parties. How do you evaluate the legitimacy of the PDP's victory in this election, looking at the boycott?
Well, like I said, there's nothing new with what happened in Osun State, with what has happened either in Lagos State, in Ogun State, with the conduct of local government election. We've seen the State Independent Electoral Commission, which is charged with the responsibility of conducting local government election, to be an extension of the State House of Assembly, of the governor, and of the ruling party controlling the state. That has been what has characterized local government elections. So what we have in Osun State, we have had it in Lagos in the past, We have had it in Ogun in the past. We have had it in many states of Nigeria in the past. In actual sense, in some states in Nigeria, for more than 12 years, local government elections were not conducted. The last local government election that were conducted was conducted in December 1998, and any critical stakeholder will call for us to reform this particular level of governance, because you boycotted. Because look, at the end of the day, you see that it is working to the answer. In almost all of the states, it is the party, and we can do that 98% of the time. It is the party that controls the state government that has won the local government election in Nigeria. These are facts that are incontrovertible facts, and it is not mathematically possible. It's not mathematically possible. But how can we solve this problem? The only way we can solve this problem is for us to actually reform this particular sector, and those that are charged with responsibility of reforming this sector should not be partisan. For example, the IGP should not be partisan in local government matter. The Attorney General should not be partisan in this particular matter. What they should do is to advise government on the best process and procedure through which we need to reform the local government administration in Nigeria. What we have from Osun State to Lagos State, from Lagos State to Sokoto State, Sokoto State to Anambra State to Kebbi, Kebbi to Rivers to Benue, is a charade. That's the reality.
So if it is not reformed, there's a possibility that it will impact future elections, especially in Osun State.
It will destroy, not Osun State alone, it will destroy this democracy that we have put in place since 1999. Look, we are sitting on a keg of gunpowder whereby people have truncated the will of the people at the grassroots level. There's no semblance, I can say it beating my chest, there's no semblance of governance at the grassroots level. What they do, in most cases, names are written. You can quote me on this. Names are written and then results are declared by the State Independent Electoral Commission. Across board, not limited to Osun State, except we want to play the ostrich, burying our head in sand and putting the entire of our body. Look, what I thought the present president would do is not to circumvent the process by approaching the Supreme Court, but by putting a bill before the National Assembly whereby we reform the local government, and then we do the election of the local government for all of the 77 and 74 local government in Nigeria on the same day, the same time, just like we have national elections. That is when we have some semblance of democracy at the local government. What we have at the local government level, without any exception of any state, including Lagos State, including Ogun State, Osun State, every other state, is a charade.
All right. Now, I know you did say that the last time we had a semblance of credibility in local government elections was in 1998. But, we've had Governor Ademola Adeleke describe the election as peaceful. And also, yet, there are significant challenges, including the arrest of OCEC personnel and the relocation of the commission's operations. How can these differences be reconciled, to ensure transparency, accountability moving forward?
One, the court does not have the right to stop an election. Otherwise, we have an ABN experience, which we had with the annulment of June 12th. The court does not. It's a constitutional matter. Two, the police does not have the right to stop an election. It's a constitutional matter. Three, the Attorney General can only advise, he cannot stop an election. There are some basic tenets of democracy that we must establish. If we don't establish this moving forward, this democracy that people lost their life in actual sense is actually be desecrated. Just a few days ago, people that annulled the election of June 12 were there celebrating, and people that supported June 12, all of them gathered together in Abuja to desecrate the symbolism of democracy. So this democracy that people lost their life for, if we are not careful, we will lose it on the altar of people not having respect for constitutional principle. I recall in 2015, there was an attempt to stop the local government election in Lagos State. And I said that the court does not have that power. Can a court stop general election in 2027? The court cannot stop the presidential election in 2027. The court cannot stop the National Assembly election in 2027. The court cannot stop the State House of Assembly election in 2027. There are some basic things that we must establish as the principle. And judges that give judgment to stop election needs to be sanctioned. They need to be sanctioned. They need to be sanctioned by the National Judicial Council. There are things to do. For example, can the court stop the president from operating as a president? Can you go and approach the court and say that, okay, the president should stop parading himself as the president? Or you get an injunction to stop the president from functioning as the president of the Federal Republic? Or to stop a governor from functioning as the governor of a state, duly elected of a state? There are some things, after 25 years of democratic experience, there are some things you shouldn't even be hearing at all.
Absolutely. Well, thank you so much, Jide Johnson, for your time and for speaking to us on this.
It's a pleasure to be with you. Thank you for having me.
Now, in the meantime, the South-South Zone of the People's Democratic Party has re-elected Dan Orbih as its zonal chairman in an election held in Calabar, Cross River State. Electoral Committee Chairman Vita Abba has announced that Orbih secured 174 votes to win the election. Now, other officials elected include Alabah Turnah, Secretary, Evelyn Weke, Treasurer, and Ijeoma Obani, Financial Secretary. Orbih has pledged to end impunity and imposition in the party while working on rebranding efforts. However, the PDP's National Working Committee has denied conducting the Zonal Congress, dismissing the gathering as unofficial. National Publicity Secretary Debo Ologunagba has stated that the party has not organized any South-South Zonal Congress, contradicting reports from Calabar. The second edition of the ministerial briefing has started in the Federal Capital Territory, Abuja. Now, the series is a platform where key federal government officials are expected to provide regular updates on projects they have implemented so far. The session kicked off with the Ministers of Livestock Development, Alhaji Idi Mukhtar, and Regional Development, Abubakar Momo. The Tinubu administration hopes to demonstrate its commitment to open communication and good governance through the series, which will be open to the public. Now, to help put this into perspective, we are joined by the Senior Special Assistant on Digital New Media to President Tinubu, Otega Ogra. Thank you for joining us, Otega.
Good evening, and thank you for having me on air.
Good evening. All right, now, what specific performance metrics will be utilized to hold federal ministers accountable for their achievements?
Thank you very much. So, as you're aware, the monitoring and evaluation framework for governance under this administration is under the Central Delivery and Coordination Unit, headed by the Special Advisor to the President, Adizabala Osman. In the past few months, since the government came on board, what the CDCU had done is, create KPIs in collaboration with the ministries on the key presidential priorities, which are to reform the economy, to strengthen national security, for peace and prosperity, to boost agriculture, to unlock energy and natural resources, infrastructure and transportation, the focus on health, education, social development as essential pillars for development. Also to accelerate the diversification of the economy using digitalization, the creative arts, manufacturing, industrialization, and co. And most importantly, to improve governance, for effective service delivery. So all of those have been identified as the key presidential priorities captured under the renewed up agenda. And on the basis of that, the CDCU, headed by Adizabala Osman, goes to meet each ministry, each department and agency, creates the KPIs in collaboration with both the political arm and the administrative arm, that is the civil service of the ministry or department or agency, as the case may be. On the basis of that, a monitoring and evaluation framework is put in place to measure deliverables on those things. So for each of those 8 presidential priorities, you have, each ministry that is responsible for achieving all of that. Under each ministry, you can then find out what the KPIs are.
Well, you did mention quite a few performance metrics, but, do they guarantee that the minister's actions and outcomes will truly reflect President Tinubu's grand vision for economic recovery, enhanced security, and also robust infrastructure development?
Okay. Yes, it does, because the president came into office prepared. prior to assuming office, we had a plan, and that plan has been stuck most part of the way. And why would it, you asked a question as to whether it can achieve the goals of the administration. I would say yes. So if you go to the CDCU website, which is app.cdcu.gov.ng, you would see all those things because it's actually publicly available information. You see all the 8 presidential priorities. Once you click on either of the priorities, it shows you the ministries responsible. So for instance, let's take the reform of the economy one. You have the Ministry of Finance, you have the Ministry of Budget and Planning, you have other ministries that work together on that. Under the Ministry of Finance, you see things like tracking the implementation of tax waivers, deepening tax collection and broadening the tax nets, automations, you have implementing the fiscal risk strategy and debt management strategy of the government. So all those things have been carefully planned in collaboration with each of the ministries so that at the end of the day, because we're using an all-of-government approach, we do not believe any problem that bedevils us in this country or anything that needs to be fixed can be done by one ministry, one person alone. No, it's an all-of-government approach, it's an holistic approach that looks at how each of these things or the role each agency, ministry, or department has to play in each of those 8 presidential priorities. And their deliverables are broken down into that, which is also tracked, based on the monitoring and evaluation framework.
Okay. Now, still speaking on monitoring and evaluation framework, will periodic assessments be conducted? I'm asking because we'd like to know what criteria will determine the success or even the failure of each ministry's initiatives.
Okay, so based on all these KPIs, so what Adeza's team does is they have, real-time and periodic reviews as part of their monitoring and evaluation framework. Based on the KPIs that have been set with each of these ministries, the CDCU goes to them, they get the reports from the ministries, from the ministers, departments, and agencies. They get, independent assessments, and they also get public feedback based on each of the KPIs and deliverables for all these people. Mind you, these deliverables are all measurable. They're time-bound also, and this comprehensive M&E framework is what feeds into the quarterly performance reports and review for all the ministers in Nigeria. The president also meets with each minister as often as possible within that period to understand what their needs are, to understand where their challenges are, and to have, a first-hand view or overview of the situation. So all this comes together, and for instance, the ministries have been bureaucratic delays in anything they're doing, for instance, because the CDCU monitors them on an ongoing basis, because they get real-time reports based on their KPIs. They can easily go meet whichever ministry or agency is responsible for helping to break down that, bureaucratic challenge that they're having and fix it.
Okay. Now,
so the system is pretty much proactive.
All right, Otega. Just before we let you go, all these initiatives affect the citizens, that's the people. Now, will the public be granted access to the minister's scorecards, to maintain transparency and accountability in the assessment process? So
I think you would agree with me that one thing that's been the hallmark of this administration is transparency and accountability. Even when something misses us, we are not afraid to, take it on board and go back and, fix whatever is wrong. And it's the same thing too with the CDCU. Citizens participate through the app, and the app is it's a web app. It's app.cdcu.gov.ng. Anyone can go there. You can see what any minister is doing. You also can give your feedback at designated periods by the CDC, by the units, as to how the agencies, ministries, and departments are performing. For instance, if a road is meant to be constructed in your area, and that's part of what they're meant to do as part of, opening up the economy, you should be able to, report that ministry or report that department or agency to the CDCU. And this feeds into the ministerial, report that is shared to the president, which the president also utilizes in making decisions as to, those that are working with him.
Okay.
So yes, it's very much open and transparent. And again, everything also aligns with, the national development goals that we have.
Okay. All right, Otega. Well, thank you so much for your time and for speaking to us.
Thank you very much.
We'll take a quick break now. When we come back, we'll tell you how experts, consumers call for harsh measures to check menace of fake drugs. Details of this and more after the break. Stay with us. Thank you for staying with us. Now, former Central Bank of Nigeria Governor Godwin Emefiele has denied ownership of funds and properties forfeited to the federal government. A federal high court in Lagos, presided over by Justice Yelim Bogoro, granted the final forfeiture of $4.7 million, 830 million naira, and multiple properties allegedly linked to Emefiele. In a press statement issued by his legal team, led by Olawale Fakbaunda, Emefiele distanced himself and his immediate family from the assets. He clarified that some of the forfeited properties belong to his relatives, urging the public to stop linking him to the case in the interest of fairness. Away from that, Kogi Central Senator Natasha Akpoti-Uduaghan has alleged that the Senate leadership is planning to suspend her following a heated altercation with Senate President Godswill Akpabio over a seating arrangement in the chamber on Thursday. Akpoti-Uduaghan, a member of the opposition People's Democratic Party, made the allegation in Abuja. Despite the alleged planned suspension, the senator promised to continue serving her constituents. She said any suspension will not stop her commitment to public service. The alleged planned suspension is coming after she had a verbal clash with the Senate president in protest against the change of her seat in the chamber. Let's move to security, where the community of Owerri Ezwakala in Orumba South local government area of Anambra State has been thrown into mourning and anger following the alleged extrajudicial killing of 3 innocent workers by the Agune Chamber security outfit, a government-backed security squad. The slain victims, identified as Malachi Chimobi, Iwananya, and Odinkalu Chinonso from Umweze 1, Ehime Mbano, Imo State, and Kosiso Chukwu from Iswafia, Governor Chukwuma Soludo's hometown, were reportedly on site for the church building project when they were gunned down. Now, the security operatives allegedly labeled them as unknown gunmen, a term commonly used for criminals and insurgents in the region. News Central Special Correspondent on Investigative Journalism, who is currently on ground on an assessment exercise of the security situation in the state, has more.
This is the compound of late Marcel Okoye, whose son was among 3 men who were gunned down by men of the Agune Chamber security forces. The Agune Chamber is a security force that was put together by Governor Chukwuma Soludo of Anambra State to help augment the services and efforts of the Nigerian police in the state in tackling the activities of IPOB and what has now come to be known as unknown gunmen. Now, Kosi Sochukwu was the member of this compound, the son of late Marcel Okoye, and his bereaved mother is still here and finding it difficult to move on without her son, whom many have said was the comforter of the family. He was killed while working in an Anglican church in Umweze, in Orumba South local government of the state. He is from Iswafia, the governor's hometown, and that is why it is sort of, taking the people aback that this can happen to a son of the town of the governor and nothing has been said, nothing has been done, not even a visit to the family. But we're here to follow up on that incident. Their bodies were left littered on the road at where they were gunned down, and you had members of the public who were outraged by the killing of these men by Agune Chamber security.
To health matters. Over time, Nigeria has recorded interceptions and raids of either counterfeit or expired drugs in large quantities from different parts of the country. Now, sometimes arrests are made by the regulatory agency of suspects but hardly do the people get to know how many convictions are got over the years. Now, recently, the National Agency for Food and Drug Administration and Control carried out raids in some popular markets in the southeast, wherein they discovered warehouses and truckloads of unwholesome drugs. News Central's Chinwe Ogele in this special report tells us more.
Nigeria is one country where drugs are sold easily in the open markets, even without prescriptions. In the same vein, manufacturers of various medications sell to ready buyers, irrespective of their status.
Well, I know the government will look into that, but while we are still working on this, we want to make sure that it's sanitized, what is being sold from here.
This, according to a pharmacist, Ijeoma Obani, accounts for the several cases of fake and expired drugs sold in pharmacies.
I will always advise people to use registered pharmaceutical shops, outlets, because they have sworn oath that they are to sell the authentic medication.
A consultant pediatrician, Dr. Ijeoma Obani, says these fake or expired drugs are capable of damaging more vital organs in human beings.
In our population now, we have so many people coming up with kidney failure. Those fake drugs and expired drugs may be one of the reasons why people are having this increase in kidney failure.
Besides the health issues associated with the intake of these drugs, there is the economic draining of consumers who unknowingly purchase them.
And it at the end also make the person, instead of going home maybe within few days, will stay longer in the hospital, assuming the patient was admitted. And also you end up spending more money, okay? So maybe instead of spending just 5,000 to treat that illness, you may spend up to 20,000.
Recently in Abia State, the National Agency for Food and Drug Administration and Control besieged a warehouse where every single medication inside is allegedly expired.
This quantity we cannot quantify yet because everywhere here is filled, everywhere. We also saw a machine that is used to do expired products. So it shows us that this is what is taking place in this place. An arrest has been made. The police have a few people, but the main person is on the run.
At the popular Omogu Bridgehead Market on Nisha, Anambra State, the regulatory agency seized yet another consignment of 40-foot-10 trucks of alleged fake and expired drugs.
So that is why this is never taken lightly in any civilized nation.
To the public, it is disheartening to know that they may have at one time or the other purchased their own problems with their money inadvertently.
I feel so bad because any fake drug produced at any point in time has a life it will affect.
They are
therefore demanding for commensurate punishments against the dealers.
Government because he bugu a lot of people.
NAFDAC, they should sit up to their responsibilities. If it means life jail on the person that they find selling a fake drug.
They have to give stricter laws of what should be done to such individuals. That way to deter others.
Why does it seem as if an infinitesimal population is bringing the people to their knees while the government watches helplessly? Ijeoma Obani believes that restricting sale of drugs to only registered personnel will go a long way in checkmating the activities of the perpetrators.
The NAFDAC, Pharmaceutical Council of Nigeria, and all the agencies that are related to drug procurement and drug delivery, they should have registered pharmacists or registered pharmaceutical company that will have their pharmaceutical rep whose sole job is to distribute to all the pharmacies, all the outlets that need that medication.
As much as the regulatory agency raids shops, markets and warehouses, to seize unregistered, fake and expired drugs, there are still lots of these drugs dumped in several pharmacies across the zone being sold to the unsuspecting public daily. It appears rather too easy to wriggle out of the custody of the regulatory body, hence the little information on the cases after raids and fewer convictions secured by the agency over the years. In Omahia for News Central, Chinwe Ugele.
Thank you, Chinwe, for that special report. Now, away from that, in a bid to boost socio-economic activities in the Niger Delta, the Niger Delta Development Commission has commenced the reconstruction of the Abraka-Obe Road, Phase 1, and the rehabilitation of failed sections of the Abraka-Agbo Road in Delta and Edo states. The 9.6-kilometer stretch, previously impassable, had become a hotspot for kidnappings and armed robberies, posing a serious threat to commuters and businesses. With an 8-meter-wide asphalt carriageway, the project aims to restore safe passage and enhance economic connectivity between industrial and agricultural communities across Etiop East and Oriomwan local government areas.
Intervening in this project to also reduce the sufferings of our people. While we are also intervening in projects in the communities, let us also intervene in those projects that also reduce the cost of living in those communities, because they are all complementary. In all we do is to complement the effort of the Ministry of Works, also to complement the effort of the state government. We know the state governors are also doing their bit. Most of them are doing very well. All what we do, we are not in competition with the state governments, we are only complementing whatever the state governments are doing, because we play a complementary role as an interventionist agency. So we are looking forward towards partnering with state governments to embark on big projects that will impact on the lives of the people of the Niger Delta. And that is what the Renewed Hope agenda is all about.
Honestly, I am extremely grateful and thankful to God that I'm here to witness such a huge milestone for our people and for the people of Delta State. And I want to thank you, Chairman, MD, for giving our people life. Because with good roads and good infrastructure comes life and light. So I thank you. And I know my people are grateful. I mean, I'm not that grateful. I'm not that grateful.
The Kogi state government has expressed a huge sense of loss following the demise of Professor Tom Adaba. Professor Adaba, who passed away at the age of 83, was celebrated for his trailblazing contributions to Nigeria's media landscape. Professor Adaba's legacy is marked by groundbreaking achievements. He was one of the first Nigerians to earn a doctorate in mass communication, setting a high standard for academic excellence in the field. In an official condolence message signed by the State Information Commissioner, Kingsley Fangwa, the Kogi state government described Professor Adaba as a media colossus, patriot, and a distinguished Nigerian whose wisdom and dedication left an indelible mark on the country. Away from Nigeria, the United Nations has reported that around 42,000 people have fled conflict in Eastern Democratic Republic of Congo and crossed into Burundi within 2 weeks. Now, Rwandan-backed M23 fighters have seized Goma and Bukavu, intensifying fears of a wider regional conflict. The UN has, however, warned that M23 forces continue to advance into strategic areas of North and South Kivu. UNHCR had anticipated an influx of 58,000 refugees over 3 months, but the numbers have surged with over 9,000 people crossing in a single day. Meanwhile, most refugees have arrived through the Rusizi River near Rugombo and a transit center near Bujumbura.
Security situation in the DRC has been having a serious impact on the Burundi side.
Over the past few weeks, we have observed a large number of people, of Congolese, who have been crossing into Burundi. Just for the first 2 weeks, we have received more than 36,000 in Rugombo, which is the border I mentioned, and 6,000 currently at the transit center close to Bujumbura, which makes it around 42,000 people already seeking asylum.
On World Wrap, Pope Francis is in critical condition after he suffered a long asthmatic respiratory crisis that required high flows of oxygen. Now, according to the Vatican, the 88-year-old Francis, who has been hospitalized for a week with pneumonia and a complex lung infection, also received blood transfusions after tests showed low count of platelets, which are needed for clotting associated with anemia. And doctors have actually said that Francis' condition is touch and go and that he is by no means out of danger. Doctors also warned that the main threat facing the Pope would be the onset of sepsis, a serious infection of the blood that can occur as a complication of pneumonia. Francis, who has chronic lung disease, was admitted to Gemelli Hospital on February 14 after a week-long bout of bronchitis worsened. Spanish Prime Minister Pedro Sanchez has said that peace in Ukraine cannot be imposed as he prepares to visit Kyiv on Monday. Speaking in northwestern Spain, Sanchez has emphasized that a just and lasting peace must involve Ukraine and Europe rejecting any settlement dictated by force. His comments follow U.S. President Donald Trump's statement that Ukrainian leader Vladimir Zelensky needs not be present in negotiations to end the war. Sanchez has reaffirmed Spain's support for Ukrainian democracy, marking 3 years since Russia's invasion.
España es bien clara. Ni ley del más fuerte, ni la ley del salvaje oeste. La paz de Ucrania y la seguridad de Europa no se pueden imponer, se tienen que acordar con los ucranianos y con los europeos. En esta guerra entre Putin y Ucrania hay un agresor y hay un agredido. El agresor es Putin y el agredido es Ucrania. Ucrania nunca representó ninguna amenaza para Rusia, ni en términos de seguridad, ni en términos de ningún tipo de amenaza.
Now let's join our business desk for today's update.
The Nigerian government has reiterated commitment to supporting operators of free trade zones to boost the global competitiveness of the scheme. Olufemi Ogunyemi, the managing director of the Nigeria Export Processing Zones Authority, NEPZA, said this in a statement on Saturday. Ogunyemi, who spoke at the third Nigeria Economic Zones Association meeting in Lagos, said the mandate of the scheme aimed at fast-tracking industrialization, non-oil trade, employment generation, and export, which was too precious for the government to circumvent now. He said the authority remained a product of law of the parliament, positioned to drive economic growth through the FTZ scheme in line with global best practices. The Nigerian government has spent approximately $8 billion in an attempt to stabilize the naira amid ongoing economic pressures. This was made known by the CEO of financial derivatives company Bismarck Rawani. In an interview, Rawani highlighted the substantial interventions made to manage exchange rate volatility and inflation concerns. He was speaking against the backdrop of the recent Monetary Policy Committee meeting of the Central Bank of Nigeria, which retained MPR at 27.5% on Thursday. According to him, the government has not only spent billions defending the currency, but has also raised additional funds through debt instruments. Meanwhile, in South Africa, Eskom on Saturday evening announced Stage 3 load shedding. In a short statement on social media, the power utility said it had encountered another temporary setback after 20 days of uninterrupted electricity supply. As a result, Stage 3 load shedding will be implemented from today at 5:30 p.m. until further notice. Eskom, a South African government utility, said it would provide further updates on Sunday. The epileptic power supply persists despite government interventions in bailouts to keep it operational. And that's all on business news. I am Lekon Onobanjo.
We'll take a break now. When we come back, it's sports update. Stay with us. Now, in the world of sports, Nigerian sprint sensation Favour Ofili made a strong statement in her season debut, storming the victory in the women's 60-meter final at the LSU Twilight Meet in Baton Rouge, Louisiana. And Ofili, a standout performer on the U.S. collegiate circuit, clocked a season-best 7.26 seconds to edge out American sprinter Thelma Davis in a thrilling photo finish. Davis finished just a fraction behind the 7.27 seconds, while Nigeria's Rosemary Chukwuma and unattached athlete Noya Willis rounded out the top finishers. Now, the win marks a promising start to the 2025 campaign for Ofili, who will be aiming for a dominant indoor season as she builds momentum towards bigger competitions later in the year. The Royal Aces Basketball Club have signed talented shooting guard Okeke Chidinma Lovett to a one-year contract. Now, Lovett comes to the Aces with impressive credentials, having played for both Dolphins in the Nigeria's Women's Basketball League and ASPAC BBC in Benin Republic. Now, the star guard caught the team's attention during the Louis Edem Foundation West African Basketball Invitational Championship in February, where she showcased her shooting and defensive abilities while representing the Aces. Head coach Olusegun Ojo praised Lovett's impact, saying her experience will be crucial for the team's success this season. This signing is part of the Aces' broader recruitment drive, which includes recent additions Udoyin Ruth and Onajomo Ogeneochukwu, with talks ongoing to bring in Oyindamola Abdulaziz. And that's all at this hour. But before we go, here's another look at our major stories. People's Democratic Party has swept all chairmanship, councillorship seats in Osun local government elections. We also told you that former Central Bank Governor Godwin Emefiele has denied ownership of seized funds property. Finally, we told you that 42,000 people have fled eastern DR Congo to Burundi in 2 weeks amid escalating tensions. You can watch News Central live on DSTV channel 422, StarTimes channel 274, Avo TV, and YouTube. Many thanks for watching. I'm Darshan Usman.